Okay, well, it is Cox Plate week officially, which means there are two things you can rely on. One, Winks will win, and two, all of our analysis will be completely wrong in advance and afterwards, as usual. Of course, I'm talking about the Titus and Sergio Variety Hour podcast. This is it once again. I'm Sergio Paradise and joined, as always, by noted royal watcher, Titus O'Reilly.
Oh, what a week it's been of royal watching.
And they're still here.
I thought they'd left one of them, they've split up, haven't they?
Yeah.
Like one is in, one's gone to Fiji.
He hasn't knocked her up and then ditched her.
Do you know, I genuinely have no interest. Like, I'm not really necessarily on this people that's like, I mean, I just think the whole thing's bizarre, but
yeah.
I don't hate on it all the time, but I also couldn't care less.
Yeah.
But because of the Australian media and social media, I know exactly what they've done the entire time. It's been impossible to avoid it.
I had friends of mine who live in Albert Park who were tweeting and Instagramming videos of them getting on that tram last week.
Oh, really?
And these aren't people who work in the media. They just, I'm going to go out and watch them and put a video of them.
Well, it's been interesting. A lot of people who I've, either know personally or know through social media and stuff, who I would have never picked.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's a picture of
They're
me right
it,
near where they walk past.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't believe they're still here. It's been a fair old tour.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
They'll be up, fruit picking at Mildura soon with all the other
if they want to
Poms whose visa has expired,
Well, and this is very raw-like behaviour. Just as we've come on air, recording this, Shane Mumford.
Breaking news
has been caught in the video snorting a white powder.
Yeah.
We should say allegedly, even though the video's there and everything. But
and there was, he
was about to make a comeback.
Yeah, I think you could put a line through that now.
Hey, there you go.
You see what I did there? Did you see what I did?
I don't think he's going to, is he?
I don't think so now.
But there's a couple of things here, like
well chopped lines, especially that big one.
They've done great. Seem like they've done great work there. But once again, the stupidity of people filming people taking drugs, especially if you're anyone slightly famous. Now,
the shock that it got out.
If you can't trust your drug-addled mates not to leak
who
a
can
video,
you trust?
Who can you trust? But so that so it's these things keep happening, and you're kind of like, oh.
On the other hand, he's a retired footballer, so
there is that.
In theory, he could snort, ingest, do whatever he wants with his time, and nobody cares. Although if he's still employed by an AFL club, it's probably not a great look.
It's not a great look. I mean, when it comes to illicit drugs, I kind of feel in a weird position because I take so many of them.
Yeah, I mean,
because so much of
you're completely in favour of them
because of where all my money comes from. No, when I always think about it like, on one hand, I think these people are role models and all that sort of stuff. On the other hand, I think, well, there's not many 20-year-olds who haven't dabbled or done something stupid. Now, it might be booze rather than drugs or whatever. So, out of season he's not even a player.
Yeah.
It's sort of a bit of a, these guys get no privacy ever. And here's the media now splashing the video everywhere and all that sort of stuff. They're not... It's an illegal act, but he's not killing someone so... But
I tell you what, if he was putting away all 5 of those lines, he wouldn't be eating 38 sausages straight after. he wouldn't be wanting them.
Mm. Absolutely amazing. So who knows what will happen there? I sort of feel weird because he wasn't
the one thing that will happen is it'll be a massive story for the next 24 hours.
Yeah, be huge.
But, then it'll blow over.
Are you as shocked as I am of sports people taking cocaine?
Oh, I'm flabbergasted. Especially now it's Spring Carnival week.
Well, we don't know where the video's from either, so it could have been from 2 years ago or
it could have been from his playing days. It could have been last weekend. Who knows? But
yeah, I mean, it's not surprising to me when you get a bunch of young blokes in AFL and NRL had their fair incidents with this. They've got a lot of money and they're put under enormous pressure. And then you kind of, it's just the conditions are there. You're not surprised. It's like if it's incredibly cloudy, you're not surprised that it rains, It's not saying it's all fine, but it's, and then I love them journos that all get like on their high horse about it, like not a good look, and you go, hang on.
Well, last time I saw you, you're on your hands and knees throwing up in the gutter outside Crown,
Because there's not many of them, I would say, you squeaky clean.
With the illicit drugs, let's say cocaine, for example. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago talking to a former AFL player, of course I won't say who, but he said a lot of the young blokes do it, he said, because it doesn't affect your skin folds. And I know that sounds facetious and stupid,
right?
But he said you get on the grog a fair bit. He said
the calories build up.
You fatten up pretty quick.
Yeah.
He said that's why a lot of them. He said not in the season. He said because you're liable to get caught. But he said off season. He said the pressure is greater than ever to come back in good shape. And if players come back fat, or is it regarded as fat? It's
I get illicit drug testing in season because it's a bit like, you want to know the people are. It can sometimes, people argue, have a performance enhancing bit, but even if it doesn't, you want, because they're doing such a physical activity. It's a bit like if you're a forklift driver, right? You want the people around you to be sort of both
sure you're not going to
be able to protect themselves as well, right? You don't want. So off season, I am a little bit with where I think these guys, and it'll be interesting if it happens to the women AFLW players and stuff as that gets more popular.
They don't get paid well enough.
Yeah, they don't get paid well enough to give up. But you kind of look at it and go, at what point do you say, look, we're going to get out of your lives for 4 months?
Yeah.
And we're not condoning it. But it's not the AFL's job to stop illicit drug consumption.
No.
Like, this is what I also, people say, the AFL's got a drug problem. And you're like, seriously,
well, I don't think the AFL's got a drug problem.
You've had $1 billion war on drugs, led billions of dollars donated by the whole global, political infrastructure, and they've lost that. So what, the AFL's meant to fix it? That's my favourite when they go, the AFL aren't doing enough. And you go, what? They're meant to
they can't even fix the in the back rule or the prior opportunity.
That's right. Unless they extend the protected zone to cover the cartels. What are they meant to? That's the thing I always. But I tell you what, we talked about the media, and their hypocrisy often.
Yeah.
This is where there's no doubt that there are those among them that must be on cocaine to come up with a bunch of ideas we've got here, because this is sort of going to be our
media watch.
This is our media watch show.
Yeah,
because there's a lot happening. It's sort of when we were putting together all the stuff that's happening in the last week. It's sort of like, there's a lot of media.
Yeah,
stuff.
when you list them, it's amazing.
So we should start off. Well, actually, you text me on just on Media Watch about Jonathan Thurston,
on
the NRL player on the
60
minutes
Sunday night. Yeah,
because we were talking about my book that's about to come out next Monday, which is a Sporting Chance, about how we always forgive our sporting stars. And you've just started reading that, and you said his interview was the perfect example of a.
This is your book. It's like he's read your first chapter. For those who didn't see 60 Minutes, and compared to 30 years ago, that would be most people.
Yes.
Jonathan Thurston, one of the greatest NRL rugby league players of all time. There's no question of it. One of the things he was asked about was the gang rape allegations from some years ago.
Yes.
And in his defence, it's hard to know how he probably should have answered, but his basic answer was, you don't know how much that affected me and how tough it was for me. And I was sitting there thinking, possibly the woman involved may have copped a fair whack as well, JT. And I thought, this is the perfect example of your sporting chance good bloke thing, where the athlete concerned, and I'm only pointing the finger at Jonathan Thurston because he gave this interview on the TV the other night, is that the self-centeredness / narcissism of elite athletes cannot be overestimated. And this was a perfect example. Is that?
Well, I think it was
a traumatic experience for all concerned, but the implication from JT was that nobody was more traumatised about being of this gang rape than he was.
Well, we spoke about Barry Hall, going and doing the interviews with Staker, where he'd sit down next to Staker and say, "Oh, I don't think people get how bad me punching this bloke's lights out affected my life." While Staker sat next to him, he's going, half my jaw's got wire.
Still barely see out of his right eye.
Yeah, I can't go through airport security. And meanwhile, Barry's going, "Oh, it made me a bit sad."
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what, they're not bad.
Well, one that's come up that's really caught our minds, and this hasn't been greenlit. So the footy show's been under enormous thing, and we might get to some of what's been said about the AFL version. The NRL one's already been cancelled.
That's dead.
But Shane Warne has been doing his promotion of his new autobiography.
He's on Media Street at the minute, I'll warn him.
Absolutely, and he has said that if Sam Newman might finish up at the footy show, which is sort of the rumour, that he and Sam Newman are plotting an idea of doing a nightly TV show together, sort of a variety hour with Shane Warne and Sam Newman doing it. He said that he says, this is Warne, Sam is Channel 9. Sam Newman is everything Channel 9. He should have his own show. There is an amazing opportunity for anyone who comes up with the right nightly show. If Coldplay frontman Chris Martin comes to Australia and wants to promote his new album, what show does he go on? So maybe Sam and I have got something in the pipeline for a
project,
show.
All the breakfast shows.
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't really need to because Coldplay will sell out anyway.
So Sam Newman and Shane
Can you imagine the two of them?
Oh, well, I've got to pay tribute to Tim Callanan from the ABC, who's already named this new show Antiques Roadshow, the Sam Newman, Shane Warne show. But can you imagine?
Can't you just flick on to Sky News After Dark if you want this kind of... 5
nights a week. I don't think...
I think this is all in Shane's head, right? I don't think there's any example.
He has no idea how much work would be involved. And can you imagine trying to produce that show? It'd be like trying to teach mice how to play chess.
But Sam Newman can't even rate once a week at the moment.
5 nights a week.
Didn't Warnie have a talk show briefly?
It was called Warnie, funnily enough. And
how many days have they even come up with that?
Well, just about as long as it took them to axe it. I think they contracted it for 13 weeks, which was the go back then. Now a lot of the series run shorter than that, but it was contracted for 13 weeks. But they axed it after about 6, I think, because well, A, it wasn't rating, and B, it wasn't very good, surprisingly enough.
I can't believe Warne.
And I think that was the last time Chris Martin actually was on Australian TV.
I can't believe Warne didn't have the ability to ask the penetrating questions on his feet in an interview.
It was truly car crash TV.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
I never watched it.
I remember watching the first couple, just thinking, how bad is this going to be? And I was right. It's like watching Blind Date. That's on at the moment. Have you seen that with Julia Morris?
No, I don't know anything about Blind Date. Someone sent in a question. I didn't include it because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Which could actually apply to most of our questions. But it said, is Titus? It was asking you, is Titus going to go on Blind Date? And I was like, I didn't even know if he meant it was a show. So is it a show?
It's a new show. It's a revamped version of. Remember Perfect Match with Greg Evans? Yeah. They've done a prime time version hosted by Julia Morris, and it is atrocious. It is appalling.
So it's not where everyone just gets blind while on a date, which would make a lot more sense.
I'd watch that. It'd be like, Night at the Tunnel.
So they've brought that back.
They've brought it back. Prime time, Monday night, 7:30.
Isn't it great, all the new ideas that they try, the networks?
But you talk about illicit drugs and cocaine use. Who's green-lighted this? Who sat around and goes, tell you what we'll do?
Yeah.
Blind Date. We'll get Julia Morris. Everyone loves Julia.
This is like they all sat around trying to come up with a new idea, and the meeting went on so long they all wanted to go out for a smoke.
Yeah.
And then one person just said, why don't we just do Perfect Match again? Someone went, great.
Yeah.
We got Julia Morris on contract.
Yeah.
Done. And let's go to lunch.
And see, the thing about the old Perfect Match is they would go on a date together. It'd always be a weekend to the Gold Coast or to Fiji.
Yeah.
They'd send the film crew, and that would be the entertaining bit when they came back. Now you know what they do? Last week, the winning couple, they went abseiling.
Right.
Not down a mountain, inside an abseiling warehouse kind of joint.
Oh, right.
That was their big, like, who cares?
Yeah.
And last night, some bloke won a date with some girl, and they're going to a cheese factory where they learn how to make cheese.
Soon they'll be going to like La Porchetta.
Oh, I'm predicting not long life. I don't know how we got on the blind date. We're talking.
I can't believe it took us 15 minutes to get there. So Scott Buck wrote in just on. He suggested that you could name Sam Newton's and Shane Warne's new share "How to Catch an STI."
Fair bit of experience there, you would imagine.
It is just amazing. The last thing Australia needs is a Sam Newman, Shane Warne show. But probably the odds of it getting up are better than most other shows. Well, that's the amazing thing.
That is the thing. Yeah, it possibly will. I won't say it will. But could you imagine who would do the interviews? I mean, Sam, I guess, would just sit there and rant and rave against the world.
Yeah.
And then for a bit of light relief, we'll cross to Warney to do a hard-hitting interview with Chris Martin from Coldplay.
Chris Martin's on every day.
Chris Martin's just tweeted, "Don't drag me into this shit."
Coming back to the footy show then, we've got no insight into what's happening there. We never have insight into anything. But Channel 9 CEO Hugh Marks said they're still working out what to do with the footy show in 2019. It's part of intense discussions, he said. They're definitely going to have an AFL-based show in the 8:30 p.m. Thursday time slot next year.
Yeah.
But he says there's no firm decision as the show's format, what it will be called or who it will be include. So really, it's pretty up in the air.
Well, Damien Barrett's already pulled the pin. He said, "Whatever it's involved, I'm going. I'm out of here."
And I think,
and to be fair, it's not like anyone switched on the footy show to see Damien Barrett. So
no, it's not there. Yeah. Well, I mean, no one switched it on anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't even know Damien Barrett was a part of it. They could announce sackings of people that were never on it, and I'd fall for it. Yeah. Chris Martin has been sacked from the footy show. So it seems what's interesting. I don't know. I genuinely have no insights into any inside word, but it seems to me what's interesting with this one is Channel 9 sacked the NRL one.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly, pretty easily. I suspect the fly in the ointment because the ratings are so bad.
Yeah, they've been horrific this last 2 years. I
suspect the fly in the ointment with the Channel 9 one is that Eddie's production company, Maguire Media, they've said produces the current footy show, and they said we'll produce whatever, whether it continues on or is replaced. They've got a deal, right? So it seems to me, reading between the lines, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the problem, because Eddie probably doesn't want to chop the footy show and wants to stay leading it, and has been incredibly loyal to Sam despite all, ratings and everything else that's happened. And so I'm wondering whether that's what's stopping him just being able to come out straight away and just if Eddie wasn't involved, Eddie's obviously they're going to keep it
certainly
with How to Make a Millionaire or whatever it's called now and all that sort of stuff. They sort of look at it and go, we can't just chop that as easily as we could over the last lot.
You're right on that. I agree. But there's a second layer to it, I reckon, with the AFL footy show, the indecision on its future.
Yeah.
That's the main one. But the NRL one in Sydney was easier to chop at because it didn't have a competitor on Channel 7, a competing NRL show. Yeah. Whereas down here in Melbourne and Adelaide and what have you.
Perth,
and Perth, Channel 7 have had the extremely successful The Front Bar with Mick Malloy and Sam Pang. And Channel 9 go, if we axe the footy show, even though our ratings were pretty ordinary this year, that's 100,000 viewers that will go immediately to The Front Bar. Yeah. So they will suddenly be an absolute powerhouse in that time slot.
Right.
So we want to maintain at least our 100,000 AFL viewers and increase them with a new program.
Right.
So it's a two-pronged thing.
But
still, who knows what it's going to be? If I was a betting man, I would say it will be an all-new format and all-new hosts. I don't reckon Eddie will do it. Again, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't reckon Sam will do it. I mean, Sam won't be able to do it. He'll be too busy doing his show with Warby.
With Chris Martin.
Chris Martin.
But it's obvious to me that Sam's... I mean, it's been obvious for about 4 or 5 years that Sam's passed his appeal.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got his hardcore group, but it keeps shrinking.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So,
you know.
But, yeah, they'll have to make a decision.
And it's not like Sam's, 50 or 60. Like, he's 70.
He's 70
odd.
something.
And so there's sort of, it's... The other thing, I was talking to someone about this the other day who is about 28.
Yeah.
And unlike you and I, they have, to them, the Footy Show brand and Sam and Eddie has no resonance whatsoever because they were never
to their lives.
They don't remember the 90s when it was the powerhouse and the early 2000s. Like, to them, it's always been a bit of a struggling kind of old-fashioned show. So it's, the brand's not even up there with what it used to be.
Right. We touched on this last week, I think, in that new generation of football fans or sports fans. I mean, they don't rely on the Footy Show to find out who's been dropped this week. There was no social media back in the day. There was no internet when the Footy Show started.
Yeah, that's right.
So now it's not a show where you rely on it for information and information that you can't get elsewhere. You can only rely on it for entertainment, and it hasn't been very entertaining for a long, long time, which is why Front Bar has done so well.
Well, and also, like you're saying, if you want to know what Brendan Favole thinks on something, you could listen to, which I don't know why anyone would, but you can listen to him on Fox Breakfast
in the mornings,
for hours.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to the Footy Show, when it used to be, that was the only time you got to hear from some of the stars of the game, sort of thing.
Well, that's right.
Completely different world. The other one that's kind of been interesting is SEN have announced a few changes, and there's also some rumours, but one of them is that they are relaunching into the Adelaide market.
Yeah.
So sorry about this, Adelaide. New 1629 SEN SA Sports radio station. Kane Corns is sort of going to be the front man.
Yeah, or Footy's shock jock, as he's now known.
He's going to be the face of it all. So they're also saying that it's going to have him doing the breakfast show. They haven't named the co-host.
No.
So
you'd have to think he'd be we're just assuming it's going to be a he.
Yeah, probably right.
Probably right.
Will be
a South Australian sports person.
You'd have to try and get an Adelaide Crows person, surely, to cover the Great Divide
but
over
one
there.
Of the reasons they're saying, SN, that they're introducing this station is to bring some balance to the state's footy media coverage.
But I think they were referring, when I read about that, I thought they meant like Port as opposed to Crows. But what they're actually saying is like more about other teams and other sports, not just the Crows and the Power.
Crows and the Power, yeah.
But, you kind of have a bit of that. They're going to have all the normal SEN. I think they're going to have a breakfast and drive that's local, and then they're going to pump in Andy Marr and Gerald Whateley.
Yeah.
So they launched it in 2005 in Adelaide as SEN 1323, but it went
lasted
different owners. It went back voluntary administration.
I was working at SEN in those days when it started.
Yeah,
doing Saturday mornings.
Was that just an overreach back then?
Oh yeah, the place wasn't ready for it, and SEN in that first year or so when they went bust, the new owners and people didn't get paid. They still theoretically owe me quite a bit of money, but they didn't have the money to pay their staff in Melbourne.
And they paid quite well, didn't they, for a station that was sort of new, didn't they?
They weren't bad. They weren't bad in the early days, some of the bigger names. And it wasn't the right time, and they didn't have the money to do so.
Yeah.
And it just fell over quick smart. And they didn't have... And again, the media... It doesn't sound that long ago, 2005, but the media landscape's changed that much.
Yeah.
Is that now with again, we hark back to it, now with social media and the internet and this and that, it's a whole different ballgame. Yeah. And SEN now, what Hutch is doing is obviously just building a network, a national network of kind.
Well, the only thing that makes sense about SEN and Croc Media's approach, I mean, when I say the only thing, but the thing that it's getting to a scale.
Yeah.
So they own the footy record. They own the radio station here. They're launching one in Adelaide. They got Footy Nation. They do all the regional and rural stuff. they're just building it to the point where they can offer advertisers huge reach.
Yeah, a huge national reach.
And it's sort of like, unless you get big like that, it won't work. So they've got to get big. So
Exactly.
that's the only thing that makes sense to me about what they're...
And the big advertisers / marketers, say your banks, your brands like Coke or stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to advertise in a national sense, whereas a lot of sports programming, whether it's TV or radio, is very localised, which is great if it's Lexus of Brighton, say, but that ain't going to play in Adelaide or Perth.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that's what they're trying to do.
It's going to be interesting to see how that all...
Lexus of Brighton sponsoring the Variety Hour this week. Yeah. I'll be down there to pick mine up after the show.
So that's going to be interesting. What's interesting is because SEN in Victoria, and in fairness, like since Hutchie's come on, they've only had it sort of a year.
Yeah.
And yet the fielding, they've probably got in there and they've been doing all the stuff in the back end and getting the advertisers on and all that sort of stuff. And they bought their big movers. They bought Gerald Waitley and did a reshuffle.
Yeah.
Moved Ox and Marco along, but when you look at it all, you can't say it's really. It's bombed so far. I mean, their ratings are low. They have not improved.
They improved the last one about 2 weeks ago.
But that was the footy finals one. And still, it wasn't like it shot up to. They're still rating like low 3s.
Yeah, they want to get. I remember, as I again mentioned when it started, somebody there said, look, if SEN, they're never going to beat 3AW, they're never going to take the footy off Triple M or anything. But if they could continually rate at least a 5 across the board, they would make it a profitable radio station.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the overheads of some of the bigger ones, and they can get enough advertising that everyone makes a buck. They haven't reached that yet, so they'd be wanting to get there.
Their cost might be lower, though. I think Croc Media run on the smell of an oily rag.
Yeah,
so I think, in terms of... But, yeah, you got to look at it and say it's not like any of it has really paid off. And then David Schwartz and Mark Allen have gone to Macquarie Sports Radio, which they've picked up sort of a 1 share, 1%
they have
share.
no listeners.
They've got very few. But it's sort of... It's still some people who would have listened to SEN have gone across with them. There's talk of Kevin Bartlett going across.
That's the rumour going around. That he might be going, that he's not happy at SEN.
So that's the other
rumour.
I
don't know. I do a spot with Kevin Bartlett every Wednesday.
Yeah, hasn't told you
no,
first?
Hasn't he? Surprisingly enough, he hasn't. He
hasn't on air said, by the way.
Hasn't asked for my counsel on that decision.
So, there's a lot of talk that he hasn't been happy for a long time there. That's the rumour, So he could be off to potentially Macquarie. But it just shows that the ratings in that are hard. I don't understand a lot of the... I still don't really get what SEN is really about, because you've got very different... Like, I think Tim and Gary in the morning suffers from the worst problem of just being incredibly boring.
Yeah.
And Gary is not beloved.
No,
even some people will say, some footy fans will say, I think he's got good insights as a special commentator or whatever.
Yeah.
Some people will say that, but still, no one says, he's great, Gary.
Yeah, and you still see it pop up on social media a bit. Is that there's still a fair smattering of blokes.
Never forgiven him.
I'll never forgive him. You don't cut your mate's lunch.
But I think even beyond that, even if Gary was an incredibly fun, charismatic guy, people would forgive that eventually. But I just don't, so. And then, but then you go from that to Gerald Waitley, who hasn't been on that much.
Nah,
it's more the Kane Corn show more often which he won't be able to probably drop in and do as often now if he's doing the breakfast show in Adelaide. So
that's the thing. You see two distinct personalities. Jared takes himself and the whole thing incredibly seriously. Yeah. Whereas Kane's been, whether you like him or hate him, he's certainly come out swinging and has created a
he's
niche
a
for
true
himself.
talkback shock jock, basically,
exactly.
But in a sports mould. And then you swing to Andy Marr, and then you go into the drive with KB and Doc, and it just doesn't feel like a coherent offering of it's not like we're sports but with a little bit of humour, or we're deadly serious, highly analytical, or it's sort of a bit of a, I don't know where it sits in.
With SEN is that over the course of a day, the same subject gets discussed ad nauseum with different talkback callers from dawn till dusk. Almost. Like you can put your house on the fact that tomorrow morning it'll be the Shane Mumford story.
Yeah.
And that won't stop until tomorrow night,
But I sort of get like Triple M for all it's like you can not like the brand, but it's sort of rock footy.
Rock, sport and comedy was one of their great sort of taglines.
And it's mates, it's that matey, blokey. And it's sort of, exactly what you're going to get. And every show on it fits into that category, right?
Yeah.
Like but with SEN, I just get a sense of, well, what is it? Like, what's it?
Yeah.
What's it offering you? Like, so it'd be interesting to see whether they stick with Gary and Tim. They inherited that from the previous mob.
Yeah.
Croc Media inherited it. So you kind of look at it and go, do they stick with that? Because Jared's not doing well, but if your breakfast show's rating 3s, you're not going to really shoot it out.
And if Kevin Bartlett was to pull a pin, you'd expect there's got to be a reshuffle, reshake somewhere. But who knows?
Anyway. So that's what's happening with SEN. CAD1 wrote in, SEN has just announced a new Adelaide SEN station to be spearheaded by Kane Corns. Does Serge believe that this is what the Adelaide folk deserve, or is the place really not that bad? Do you wish this on the people of Adelaide?
Also, see, I don't dislike Kane Corns as much as others, although I thought he was going to be a fireman when he left.
Well, that was the original
plan. I've just decided this pays better, or it's less dangerous perhaps than going into burning buildings.
Well, it's all happening in the media though, isn't it?
It is.
Who knows? Like
we've just effectively ensured that we're unemployable in the mainstream medium for
Well, my new book's going to make sure I'm definitely unemployable. across every medium, but that's not. No one's been knocking the door down either. So it's not like, you're not risking much.
You're not expecting a call from Warney to come and work with him and Chris Martin.
Oh, that'd be good. You'd be a good producer for that.
As I said, it'd be like trying to train mice.
Now, Serge, have you really been? I know you put on a brave face every day when we talk, and you act like life's going fine. But are you coping with the ongoing Mitch Larkin, Emily Seebohm, Australian swimming debacle that's going on? That we've been following this. If people don't know, they were a couple. They're both very good swimmers.
I thought I'd got over it.
They then broke up, and there was a lot of accusations that Mitch had cheated on Emily, and our heart went out to her and
one of his swimming partners.
And so it was all very, and it all happened around the games, and it was all very.
She was banned from training with the
Well, she
group
didn't want to train with them or something, and it all became very nasty. Now, I thought it was safe to go back in the water, so to speak. And then Mitch came out and did a interview saying that he absolutely did not cheat on Seebohm. It was his first sit-down interview since the allegations surfaced. Yeah. There's a lot of water analogies here.
There is.
He said that it was really tough ending it, and then to be accused of everything else was a whole other kettle of fish.
The
nautical things just, we did not set this up. It is kind of a... And so that's what he said. So he came out and now apparently this has been met by Seebohm. She has not directly responded to this, but
you can read between the lines. She doesn't believe a word he says.
Well, she said, "I believe women shouldn't be silenced by men, and we should have the courage to stand up when things aren't right." And then she said, "But there is a right time and a place for the story to come out, and I need to focus on getting myself back on track for what I need to do to achieve my dreams!" How often would you, in an Instagram post or life, refer to your dreams, Serge?
Oh, probably never, because for the simple fact that nobody needs to know about that sort of thing.
People talk a lot on social media about achieving and dreaming and all this sort of stuff. And
it's like I delete friends and people from Facebook or anything. Anyone who puts up inspirational quotes.
Or an affirmation or something.
Oh, yeah, can't stand that.
Yeah.
No. Leave me out of that.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. Seabum also said sometimes you put a picture of a quote, so you'd be deleting her. Sometimes the best thing you do is keep your mouth shut and your eyes open.
There you go. That's the same rule for backstroke.
She said, and it said, the truth always comes out in the end, and tomorrow is a new day. Now, apparently, another of Mitch Larkin's earlier girlfriends, another swimmer, put a social media post sort of just like making fun of the fact he even said this, obviously suggesting she doesn't believe him. But obviously it's hard for us to get our lives back in order if while this is going on the sidelines.
If a pants man like Mitch Larkin can't get it together, what chance have we got? Have you had a look at him?
No. Oh, well, I've seen him.
I mean, yeah.
But all swimmers are good looking. Like they're
no,
like,
but that's my point. He looks like the bloke you'd get to do your books. You know, he
looks like an accountant.
Yeah, he looks like an accountant. He doesn't look like a sports star or a good-looking, a
good-looking rooster.
No, he ain't a good-looking rooster.
Talking like that. The other thing that was kind of tore my world apart on the weekend, I was watching the opening of the A-League. A lot of people listening probably don't know the A-League has started.
I must admit, I didn't know a lot about the A-League starting. I stumbled on it a bit the other day.
Yeah.
And the thing I did notice, I don't watch a lot of A-League soccer on the telly, but I did notice full houses there. There was pretty big crowd.
The Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory took each other on the one of the opening games, and that was I think they had like 40,000 plus.
41,000.
That was very good. It was sort of marred because the Victory were ahead, and then a penalty was given to Melbourne City, and it was using the video review system, the VAR as it's called, and it totally the referee went to check if had called it a foul but ruled it outside the box, and then went and checked if it was. Now the referee had the chance to also look at the original foul and decide whether it was or wasn't.
Yeah.
Decided it was, when pretty clearly the universal opinion has been it was not a foul.
How can they get this wrong? This is
what's amazing, and so this marred it, because then he then awarded a penalty as well as not overturning the foul, and they got a goal, and then they got a late goal, the City. So instead of it being a 1-1 draw, it ended up being a 2-1 win to City with the referee making the big mistake. Then happened later on in the next game in Wellington, where the Phoenix got a penalty, even though he was well off the ball at one point. And that happened too. And it happened again in Brisbane's 1-1 draw with Central Coast on Sunday. So there's just a bunch of them happening. It also happened in their grand final.
It did, wasn't it?
There should have been an
final last year.
The only goal should have been offside, but it didn't call it. The head of the A-League came out and said that that the system is now working as designed.
Right.
This is just continuing the thing like we've seen it in the AFL.
Yeah.
I know a lot of NRL fans have been talking to me about the bunker up there. It's happened in the cricket often, where I'm bewildered by some of the decisions. Like
it's an Australia-wide national.
Well, it's international
disgrace.
A bit.
We're just no good at it.
But I can understand they were trying to get rid of human error.
Yeah.
But now it seems like the human error has just crept in with the technology. So
yeah.
I find
getting rid of human error, but now you've got 6 people deciding on this stuff by watching a screen, which has been controlled by humans.
Yeah.
There's just more human error than ever.
In football, what's interesting is, so in AFL, if there's a problem, like it can make a difference, but overall it tends to be, like you give up one goal, it's not the end of the world, right? The problem that football has always had is goals are just so disproportionately big compared to other sports. So, what's one goal in an A-League game worth? It's like you can 10 goals in the AFL or something. Like it's
close to that. Yeah,
it's a huge difference. It's not like giving away one goal. It's a massive impact. And so this is where I find it incredibly frustrating.
And penalties in soccer too.
That's what I mean.
That's virtually just guaranteeing a goal.
Yeah, so it's this stuff where you just see it and you go, it's if it's a bad umpiring mistake, but then a bad, using the technology, it has this huge impact. And it's easier for a game to be decided in football on these decisions than it is in a lot of other sports, because the other sports, need, there's a lot more scoring. Yeah. So it turns a game that, a lot of people can find quite frustrating, which is also part of the appeal of football, because it builds and builds, but the release when you get a goal or win is magnified because of that. It has this huge impact on it. Yeah. And, I just don't know if the world's any better since we've moved to all the technology across all the sports. Yeah,
but we just seem in this country not to be able to do any of them very well. The AFL can't even get goals and behinds right. Soccer is obviously struggling with this.
Huge problems.
NRL, the bunker. Cricket, they seem to, with Snicko and hot spots and stuff. And even then,
I find the LBW one the weirdest. And I find the
only one, the only one that actually works is in tennis.
Yeah.
Is where the ball's in or out.
Yeah.
because it's a graphic. It's not just a videotaped or filmed
it's a
piece.
3D
It's a 3D representation. So they can zoom in on that and you can see whether the ball has landed a millimetre out or a millimetre in. So that's the only one. But Australia, we're just not very good at it.
Well, the other thing I hate about, because I don't think they're that good at internationally with cricket and football either, but I also don't like when you're going to use it, they then go with the umpire's call, yet they do that in league and they do that in cricket.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point if you're referring it, because it's like, it's inconclusive. Let's go with the guy who had no clue and referred it to.
And then from the umpire's point of view, they're under more pressure because they know if they're slightly not sure, they'll go to the machine and refer it to the machine.
If you watch a game of league, there is barely ever a game. Like, there's now very few tries to just. You have to literally, are not reviewed in some way. They often go back and look for obstruction, or they'll go back and look for offside, or they'll look at the grounding, or in almost every single one. And I mean, a bit like AFL, they will go back and look at every goal, but in this, they'll just call for it straight away. They won't just do it as part of the thing. And you can understand why if you're a ref. Why would you?
Yeah.
Like, you might as well just go, hey, just you guys
go to the videotape.
But that's where you should, that should just happen. So I think they should just either, you're 100% in or you're not.
Yeah.
Should be the way it works. But
they're still going to need that human interaction to make the initial
what about the
stopping
goal
of play.
In the what about the goal in the AFL? It was reviewed this week, last year. It was, I think it was awarded a goal. It was clearly a point, but it was awarded a goal. And when they asked why, the guy that reviewed it later on said, "Oh yeah, I realised later on I was looking at the wrong player."
Yeah.
So it was touched. You couldn't invent that. That's like out of a Jonathan Clark, the game script. You
can't make that up. Yeah.
Harper Pestinger wrote, after Sergio's superb explanation of the wait for age system, can you please tell me what VAR is?
Sorry, Harper, can't help you there. I think we've just analysed it before. Yeah.
Usain Bolt, talking of the A-League, looks like he's on his way out of the Mariners, like we saw. This has been stuffed up amazingly well because there was always this would Bolt be offered somewhat, apparently against some other offers, but then would he stay? And then the head of the A-League said, well, they've offered him a contract.
Yeah.
Central Coast. It's whether he's taking it. Central Coast had not come out and said that, and the coach was unaware.
The coach didn't know about it.
So so it's whether the A-League just let it out of the bag. But I think so you had a position where the coach, obviously, the coach there thinks, look, Bolt's a mile off being an A-League caliber player.
Yeah, it's
been fun and all, but
whose spot's he going to take?
Yeah, so the coach obviously doesn't want him.
Yeah.
Happy to have him in there for a trial, but it's looked at it and gone.
Yeah, and
we're trying to be a professional.
It's got the Mariners
club.
more publicity than they've ever had, so that's good for their sponsors and all that. But
that's right. Yeah. So it looks like he's off, and that he's going to reject it because it's not a lot of money anyway that they're offering. But it says that there's not. But it's all been pretty poorly organised, I think, from the start.
It's been pretty amateurish, the whole thing.
The NBA,
but who wouldn't take a very small contract to live in Gosford for a year?
The NBA had a nice fight this week. It had a bit of everything. It was between the LA Lakers and which LeBron James has travelled to. The NBA is back, obviously, which is great news in the off season. Have something to watch every single day, as I do. But the LA Lakers, which is where LeBron James has gone, were playing the Houston Rockets at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, and fight broke out between a bunch of the players. Rondo, Ingram were fighting. They've both been suspended without pay. There was talk of Chris Paul got spat on.
Yeah,
there was
so
talk
he
of
came out swinging.
Four punches being thrown. As well as that, there was talk that the wives of, I think, Rondo and Chris Paul were also involved in a physical altercation in the stands.
Oh, is that right? The Wags got into it.
The Wag got involved.
Fantastic.
And then on top of that, the Red Hot Chili Peppers frontman, Anthony Kiedis, he lost his cool. He's a big LA Lakers fan, I believe. He got in a huge fight. He was giving the finger and yelling, screaming profanities, sticking his finger up, and he's sort of courtside at one of the players who'd been sent off. And he had to be held back by security guards and was escorted out of the stadium. So it sounds like they got a bit of everything at the Lakers.
Have you read Anthony Kiedis' autobiography?
Scar Tissue? No.
I'll tell you what,
he's a nutcase, isn't he?
Oh, he's a complete nutcase.
Yeah.
He used to go missing for 2 weeks at a time from the band.
Yeah.
And he would just get on his motorbike and drive down to Mexico and come back with about 4 kilos of cocaine.
Right.
Book into a cheap motel and just snort it till it was gone.
Right.
And then...
Did he have someone film him?
And then he'd go out and get the same amount of heroin and do the whole thing for weeks at a time.
Really?
So he's a dead set nutcase, Kiedis.
Well, funnily enough, he's... The bass player, Flea, who is quite well known from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, he weighed in on Instagram, because where would we be if there wasn't a statement on Instagram after something? And he was at the game. Yeah. So Flea addressed the Kiedis behaviour. Now, given what you've just told us about Anthony's drug use, listen to what he said about the fight. At the Lakers game last night with my dear brother, it got crazy at the end, but man, I get so satisfied deeply drinking in the depth and beauty of the game. People operating at a high level in so many dimensions: cerebral, physical, spiritual, emotional, unspoken, and telepathic communication. I truly love basketball with my heart.
Thanks for that, Floyd.
There's a minute you're never getting back of your life.
So many dimensions.
Do you think...
Telepathic communication.
Do you think he'd had something? He'd been with Shane Mumford before he wrote that?
Well, see, I reckon, again, if you go back to Kiedis' book, Flea was the straight one out of them all. I think Flea used to have a few beers, but he used to leave the hard gear to Kiedis.
Like
I think something spun around somewhere.
That's right. So anyway, that's we don't do brawls as well as the NBA. I don't think.
But did you hear the fines they got?
Yeah, it was like $1.7 million or something. It was something ridiculous.
I think Paul got like $489,000 fine.
Yeah,
you know.
But it's all relative, because that's like fining a bloke $1,000 in the AFL.
Well, yeah, I mean, $489,000. I mean, it's $500,000, which is not that much if you're getting paid 20 odd mil to play for the season.
That's right.
So as you say, it is relative, but it's still a reasonable whack.
So anyway, that could be the halftime entertainment at the next.
Well, I'd heard about this, and then I watched it last night, and
wasn't much of a.
I was a bit disappointed in it, quite frankly. If you want a basketball fight, you've got to go back to the Australians and the Filipinos.
Oh yeah, no one does it better than the Philippines.
Top that.
Getting to some of our questions the people have sent in, Declan Stimson wrote in, is Port Adelaide's logic flawed by wanting to get the best South Australian talent with higher draft picks by trading out their best South Australian-born players in Wingard and Pollock? It's a fair point.
It's a fair question, that. I mean, yeah. They're still trying to get their hands on, but they still don't have the draft picks high enough, probably, to get the 2 best South Australian kids.
We've talked about this before, like, I know there are situations where people have... I think, like, Dane Beam's an example where his father was deeply unwell.
Yeah.
And going home seemed to make... It was a very reasonable request.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that, you're entering, there are certain industries in life, and it's not just football, where if you enter them, like if you are a miner, or if you are, like a lot of people who would work for accounting firms and all this sort of stuff, you can be thrown around. It's the nature of the job, like
international diplomacy and stuff.
Don't take that job, sort of thing. There are certain industries, if you want to get into, one of the upsides or downsides of it is travel and having to often relocate. And in Australia, there's this view that, like, if you're in, if you get sent to Adelaide, like the go home factor of Melbourne, like, it's half an hour on a plane. Yeah. It's not like you're being sent to the
with the Eskimos up at you're in Anchorage, Alaska.
You're never going to be heard from again. I mean, I know people get homesick, but it is kind of a bit amazing to me the amount it's given
completely
credence.
Overblown.
And
I think I said this last week. I mean, really, if you're that homesick, I think there's something wrong with you, because if you're 19 or 20, as I said last week, and you're getting paid $200,000 a year, which is a lot more than 99% of 19 and 20-year-olds, and you get to move out of home and move interstate, you leave on your own. You hitchhike there.
Yeah, I mean, there's always exceptions because of
picked up by Liam Hemsworth on the way to Byron Bay.
There's always exceptions, I guess, where like the health reasons, or some of the Indigenous players that have come from very remote areas. I can understand that's a culture shock in a massive way. But going and living in Adelaide after growing up in Melbourne is not a culture shock.
No. Or the Gold Coast, or even Greater Western Sydney. Have you seen where half the kids who play for the Giants live? It's magnificent up in Sydney. But there are worse joints.
Hong Kong Footy wrote in.
I haven't heard from Hong Kong for a while.
Is it true an AFL think tank proposed changing the name of Trade Week to Human Trafficking Round?
I'll pay that one. Human Trafficking Round.
Dan Crowley wrote in, do you think it's finally time for the Gold Coast to get an AFL team?
I think it's just occurred to them as well, Dan.
That they mightn't work at this?
They might have a crack at it this year, depending whether they keep their
Remember the AFL banned Sydney for not being able to trade because they basically embarrassed the AFL by pinching Buddy from GWS when the AFL
following the rules.
Following the rules, in a brazen following of the rules. Do you think the AFL might think of whacking a trade ban on the Suns in a few years once these players have developed, so they can't trade them, so other teams can't pinch them?
Well, that's probably not as silly as it sounds. They're probably already considering that, because otherwise, and we've mentioned this before, the Gold Coast have now just become a feeder club for other clubs. They take the kids out of the junior system, fatten them up, get them fine, and then they come back to another bigger state.
The thing about this is, people keep saying, like they're homesick. But for me, people want to get out of the Gold Coast, not because of it's the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Because it's an absolute basket case of a club and has been from day one. They need to figure out a way to keep players. Yeah. I hear they're going to build a retaining wall and get the AFL to pay for it. Stephen Maloney wrote, Serge, with your excellent explanation once again of weight for age, that really stuck in people's memories.
Yeah.
He says it's now part of the national lexicon.
Don't know if I'd go quite that far.
I would. You're very modest. Can you please explain the point system for the father-son draft picks?
Oh, Steve, I'm glad you brought this up.
You'd be the first who could.
The father-son draft picks.
Well,
all I'll say about this, before he died, I referred this same question to the great Stephen Hawking to see if he could explain it to.
I knew you and he chatted a lot.
Yeah, I played golf with him once, but he lied about his handicap.
That's so bad.
But no,
that's not necessarily an offensive joke. It's just bad.
It's just a bad gag. I feel a bit guilty that maybe this accelerated his untimely death by trying to figure out how this works, the point system. And it's not just the father-son draft picks; it's the overall draft point system. I cannot get my head around when they say that if he goes from draft pick number 6, it's worth 1,732 points.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one going from 7 to 5, and then an on exchange for pick 11 means 1,462. It just makes no sense whatsoever. It's just another example of someone at the AFL working out and justifying their job.
Do you think I reckon someone just figured out how to work out Excel spreadsheet that week.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Channel 33 wrote in, will the AFL finally move a team to the Central Coast to combat all the attention focused on Usain Bolt? They could save loads on stationery, just cross out gold and write Central Coast. The Central Coast Suns. I like that idea. I think that's the simplest fix.
They'll have to employ someone to get the texter to go through gold and handwrite in Central.
Easily done. Just put it on Airtasker. Job done.
$26, you're on.
Oh, who are we going to give the T-shirt to, Serge?
Well, I was thinking Hong Kong foodie, about human trafficking round.
Yeah.
But I think Declan Stimson's that's a pretty good question about Port Adelaide.
Oh, okay. No worries. We'll give it to you, Declan. DM me your size and your address. I'm sending out emails at the moment, chasing up all the people going back almost 6 months I haven't sent T-shirts to. So a few people have emailed me. I am slowly getting to everyone.
Those T-shirts, they're
here. I've got them.
Moth-eaten by now.
No, they're all fine. Anything for you to promote?
Not really.
Oh, I've got the book coming out next Monday, A Sporting Chance. So you can go onto my website and get it. And you can pre-order it. And you can also get it in a deal with the first book as well if you want. You don't have to do that. Yeah. You can just get it on its own. But you can save a bit of dollars doing that. You can keep one for yourself and give the other one to someone for a Christmas present.
There you go. 2 for 1. And also, we'll hopefully announce a specific date in the next week or so. But it looks like we'll be doing a live version of this podcast.
Oh yeah,
somewhere in Melbourne.
Let us know if you're interested, because we are thinking of doing that. So
we're going to have some special guests, and we'll be in a pub, and we'll buy everyone a beer.
Oh no, they'll buy us a beer.
They'll buy us a beer, and Titus will pose for selfies. He'll sign books.
You're not going there?
Even his own. You know?
I'll sign anyone's book.
Sign anyone's book.
Or Serge, you can get a rare copy of my book signed by Serge.
Yeah, there you go. That'll be a collector's item. And we can all sit there and drink Coronas out of a bucket and just talk crap for an hour.
It'll exactly like the normal podcast.
Exactly.
We'll see you next week.